Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome back. It's the Resistance Broadcast. We hope you're having a good week. We have a fantastic show for you today. My name is John Hoey. We have The Will of the Force coming back after a week off, and we have a great discussion about someone very important to Star Wars who just recently passed away, original producer Gary Kurtz, and of course, your tweets in Resistance Transmissions. So let's get it going by saying hi to James Bainey and Lacey Gillerin. What's up, guys?
No Dameron. It's a little bit of a preview once we get into Will of the Force. I'm excited about this. Lacey, how are you doing this week? You think maybe a little No Dameron in your future?
Every episode, I never know where you're going to take it. And every time, I'm just like, what?
Do you want a secret? 50% of the time, I don't know where I'm going to take it. I figure it out while John's saying, welcome back.
You know, if we launch a Patreon, one of the items that people are going to be able to get is the notebook that James writes on when he's sleeping and like going to bed at night. Like, my next intro, I'm going to talk about Apple phones, and I'm going to talk about some crap I ate at Chipotle and pretend people care about it.
First of all, his line just now was a total that's what she said.
So I'm looking through here and I see scaring kids with a fog machine.
Every time I don't know how far I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
See notes on Vanessa Marshall.
Good.
All right. Anyway, I'm here to talk about Star Wars, so I'd like to do that, please. Thank you so much.
So we have our newest segment is making its return after we brought back Is the Force With You last week. James, I believe we call it the Will of the Force. So where is the Will of the Force this week?
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
Will we do the Will of the Force or not? What do you say?
James.
What?
We will? I don't know.
We will.
I think we will.
All right.
Yeah, yay!
All right, the first question this week on Will of the Force is, will Poe Dameron die in episode 9? Lacey, you're up first.
Sure. All right. Will he die? We talked a little bit about this on Monday. I actually think he will. I think based on his actions in The Last Jedi, I think he's going to go out, but he's going to go out sacrificing himself for other people. He's going to make the ultimate sacrifice, going against, kind of what he thinks is right. He's going to do what needs to be done.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Instead of being like, oh, I'm right, you're wrong. It's going to be like, nope, this is the only way this has got to go. So I'm going to go with yes.
Ultimate sacrifices. Poe, Kylo, Chewbacca doing the ultimate sacrifice. John, what do you say about Poe Dameron, though? You think he'll die in episode 9?
Poe Dameron, I can go either way on this. If one of them is going to die, it probably will be him on the good side. But I'm going to say no Dameron.
Yay, there it is.
Dameron. I think Poe will live. I think they teased us with a possible Finn death. That didn't happen. I think Rey dying is a little too on the nose. So, like I said, if someone was going to die, it'd probably be him.
Chewie.
But I think they're going to happy ending story this thing here for us, except for, of course, the Supreme Leader, who will die indeed.
How dare you?
Will die. So, no Dameron, and no, he will not die.
Yeah, I'm going no Dameron too. I think that Poe will live, and I think the reason he's going to live is they just want to they want to end this on a happy note, and I think that Poe and Rey and Finn surviving the big three of this trilogy is the way for that to go. Now, I'm not saying that means Kylo lives or dies. I'm just saying that I think these three are going to make it out, and that is how I feel about that.
And as George Lucas said, you can't sell action figures of dead characters.
You surely can.
Well, from what I see, Poe's figures don't sell that well anyway. So,
damn.
Sorry.
Constable Zuvio is gonna die in episode 9.
Please.
All right. Well, we talked about.
I want him to be in the movie.
Just about every angle last week. Now we're just gonna try to narrow it down to a simple answer: whether you want it to or not. Will Obi-Wan Kenobi appear in any or in any way in Star Wars Episode 9? John, kick it off right now with the wrong answer.
I'll give you the right answer, and that is he will appear in Episode 9, James.
Yeah. He's definitely not showing up in episode 9. Has no purpose, and if you guys want to go back and listen to last Thursday's episode, I'll prove it. Just listen to it and you'll get it because it makes perfect sense. Got anything to add to that, John, or should we move on to Lacey?
I mean, just that, like you said, go back and listen to our last episode from last Thursday, and you realize how ridiculous James Baney is. Obi-Wan coming back, episode 9. Book
All
it.
right, tie break us, Lacey, even though we kind of have a feeling where you're going with this. Will Obi-Wan Kenobi make an appearance in any way in episode 9?
Yes, the Force is with me no, not the Force is with me.
Oh my God, she got her segments all convoluted.
Yes, he is. He definitely is. I said this last week. I stand by it. My fangirl heart wants him to come back as her great grandfather, but as in Rey's. But yeah, he'll be there somehow. If it's like a wave at the end, he's going to be in the movie. James, I'm sorry.
All right, so I'll have you guys committed, and we'll move on. Will Jon Favreau's live-action series trailer premiere at Star Wars Celebration? So, guys, Star Wars Celebration 2019, what is that, April? That's what we're looking at, roughly around that era. Are we going to see Jon Favreau's live-action series have a trailer for us the same time that we see maybe like an Episode 9 trailer? What do you say, Lacey?
Yeah, I think we will. I think we'll see a trailer, but if not a trailer, then I think we would get a title and or images of characters.
Mm-hmm. It's a good pick. I'm thinking kind of the same thing. I think that that the way Celebration has gone in the past is they kind of go like, oh, this is the publishing day, this is the television day, this is the movie day, and to kind of put some focus on that with a big trailer and a lot of like, press for the cast announcements and stuff. That all makes sense to me.
It's also 5 days this coming year.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
never been 5 days before. They got a lot of content to fill.
Yeah,
even
so
if
they can.
Thursday's just a shopping day. That's still 4
We have to
full
hang
days.
out with each other for 5 days.
Not necessarily, because I think you guys are going home on Monday.
Yeah, but you got your Wednesday, you got your Thursday,
true,
you got your
that's true.
Friday, your Saturday, and your Sunday.
Just looking at it like the week. You got your Wednesdays, your Thursdays. All right,
You're gonna do
John,
like The Godfather. Your Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday.
do you think that we're going to see a trailer at Jon Favreau's show at Star Wars Celebration?
Up until this very moment, I was leaning on no because I felt like it was just too much.
And then Lacey's so right.
And then Lacey's like, I used to work for Reed Pop, so I know how they do that. No, I think they will.
Oh, jeez.
I think Favreau will be there, and he'll be like, I'm so money, and I don't even know it. Here's a trailer for Star Wars Money.
Imagine he
That's what
shows
it's gonna be
Lion
called.
King by accident. He's like, I mean, no. This is...
Quick side question. Will it be the first trailer?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's possible we might actually get one before then as like a teaser. But I think the big trailer, the first real trailer would be for this.
Do you think there will be a panel? Like they'll announce it ahead of time and be like, Jon Favreau's panel for his
Yes.
show. Come to this panel.
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
That or it'll be a block panel where they have all TV stuff together, all
Yeah.
standalone stuff together.
I don't know. I think there's enough this year that could be its own.
Season 2 Star Wars Resistance coming out. People like, just okay. Just give us the Favreau. Okay.
Yeah. When does Jon Favreau get out here?
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Will there be a Star Wars movie released in 2020? This is a big question because Bob Iger was just talking. There's a big slowdown. We don't know what's going on. Haven't had a movie announced. I'm still leaning on that. We're not doing anything until episode 9's released, so I'm going to go with no on this one. I don't think we're getting a movie in 2020. John, what do you think?
I think you are crazy. That Dayquil is zapping your brain.
Woo!
I not only do I think we're getting a Star Wars movie in December of 2020, but my vision is 2020 on this right now. And let me tell you something, James Baney. At Star Wars Celebration, they are going to announce the Kenobi movie, and it is going to be awesome.
For
And that
2021.
movie's going to come out in December of 2020.
All right. Well, that's John's opinion. He thinks that's going to happen. Lacey, do you agree? Do you think that... First, do you think we're going to get a Star Wars movie in 2020? And secondly, do you back up John to say it's that Kenobi movie for sure?
Yeah, I'm going to go one step further, too. I think they're going to start Celebration on Friday morning with the big panel. I think they're going to show a trailer for Episode 9. I think it's going to have Kenobi in the trailer in some sort. And then they're going to announce the Kenobi movie the next day.
Holy moly. And so what do we get if you're wrong?
Well, I won't mention Kylo Ren for 2 episodes.
For the following year, if all those things are not correct,
but if
one of those things are not correct,
John can only refer to Kylo as soft boy.
I was gonna say
Lacey.
Then every episode I have to mention how shirtless Kylo Ren is. But I agree
with Lacey though, so I don't know. That's a little interesting.
Yeah, and James has to just talk about how sweaty and glistening he is, at least for 1 minute on every episode.
Lacey, we should make some kind of big type of bet, whether it's Star Wars memorabilia or something.
We should do a bingo card for Celebration.
Or that, no, but I'm saying for episode 9, whether Kylo Ren dies or not, you and I should make some kind of bet.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, it just dawned on me.
Okay, nothing like streaking or degrading.
No,
we could do a celebration challenge. Like what will show up at Celebration? Will this be announced? Will this person make an appearance?
We could do that.
I mean, we might know some people, but
Star Wars scavenger hunt. And if our followers find certain items that we choose, like shirtless Kylo Ren cosplay, then they collect all the stuff. They can get a T-shirt or something.
That's a good idea. I was also thinking
we've gone off the path here, guys.
Yeah,
long story short, there is going to be a Kenobi movie.
This is our planning.
I had one other idea before we move on. I was thinking the 3 of us each go to a different bar or location in Chicago, and whichever one of our listeners finds all 3 of us, they win something like really big.
But then I have to drink by myself.
We could Skype.
Then I'd have to. Then I'd have to not drink in a bar.
Yeah, poor James is just gonna sit there.
Why am I here?
They'll give him milk or something. I don't know.
Yeah, milk, chocolate, and then it slides down the bar and I grab it.
Yeah, George McFly. I like it.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Donnie Yen, maybe not better known as Chirrut Imwe, at least in the Star Wars world, he is. Do you guys think, will we ever see Donnie Yen as Chirrut Imwe again in a Star Wars live action series? That's the twist right there. He could show up in some other cartoon or comic or something, but are we ever going to see this actor return in live action? Lacey, I'm going to shoot to you first. What do you think?
No. That's a no, Dameron.
Ooh.
I can't see him coming back to do it. I think he did a great job, but I don't know if he was widely appreciated in the way that he probably should have been.
But Lacey, his voice is literally the intro of this segment.
I didn't say I felt that way. I'm saying from what I've heard from other people, like, you know, one of my good friends is Asian, and he thought that character was kind of offensive.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah. Like, they finally get an Asian character in some type of really cool role, and he knows karate.
Yeah, but also that's what that person is known for doing. That's his career. So his whole career would be offensive then. I don't know. Anyway, we're not into get into that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I was going to say Baze Malbus is Asian too, and he was just like, I'm just going to shoot a lot of stuff.
John, what do you think about Donnie Yen returning?
I would love it. I think it'd be cool. I really liked Chirrut Imwe. I loved how much he loved the Force. Anytime, like, when Jyn said, "May the Force be with us," he was like, "Yes, yes, the Force, yes." He was such a Force fanboy. Like, it was so cool. Like, kind of sweet in a way. But unfortunately, I'm gonna say no. I don't think we are gonna see him again.
Yeah, I am 100% with you, and it doesn't have anything to do with, you know, this or that or back behind the scenes or anything. I honestly just think that his character doesn't really have a whole lot of relevance to any major stories before Rogue One, and then spoiler alert, he dies at the end of Rogue One. So this is like seeing Luke Skywalker at the beginning of A New Hope, who really hasn't done anything for anybody beforehand, and then to assume, like, let's assume he dies or pretend that he died at the end of A New Hope. He did something really great, and that was his story, but we're not going to see him before or after. It just doesn't make sense. His story is this story. So now there is the book, the Guardians of the Wills, that kind of has some like little things, but like nothing that would ever be like a TV show or a movie or something like that. He wasn't doing anything crazy. He was just kind of like living his life with Baze. All right, we got one more Will of the Force to talk about. Now, having read the novelization of Solo, we all have, and finding out that there's like a tie-in ending to Rogue One. If they were to make a movie or series that involves Enfys Nest, will Felicity Jones return as Jyn Erso? John, throwing it back to you.
Again, gotta go, and this isn't Rogue One hate, but I gotta go no here. I think I just feel like Felicity Jones is kind of done with Star Wars. She did her movie, and she's not the type of actress who needs to rely on that character. People, like, when they see her, are going to be like, oh, you're Jyn Erso from Star Wars. It's going to be like, you're Felicity Jones. Whereas some actors don't really have that luxury. Like Mark Hamill, for example, he's Luke Skywalker, right? So I think she's kind of done with that. I think it would be awesome. I would love it. But if I was a betting man, I would not push my chips nor my ship to the center of the table saying that she would.
Lacey, thoughts on this?
I can't believe it. I think I've agreed with John on everything tonight. This is very weird.
Or he's agreeing with
scenario.
you. Sometimes you go first.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I don't think she's coming back. I think it was a one and done type deal with Felicity, and that character, she kind of blew up, so I don't know if she'd come back. I mean, I could see them like mentioning
Are you talking
her.
about Jyn Erso kind of blowing up?
Yeah.
Like on Scarif? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I could see them like mentioning her or it coming across in conversation, like her name or like what she did.
I think you guys are missing the one like more obvious thing here, and the reason why I think that Felicity Jones will not return, but I think that Jyn Erso will. The reason is because this question is tied in heavily to the novelization of Solo, which takes place 10 years before Rogue One, roughly. So if they were going to do something with Enfys Nest and Aaron Kellyman at that age, at that time, then she most likely would be cast as a child actress. They're going to bring in someone that's like...
trick question, James.
I'm just saying...
No. See, he's wrong. He's wrong, though. And we'll get into that. But.
Yeah, will Felicity Jones return as Jyn Erso if they were doing a show on Enfys Nest? I don't think so, because I think they would try to aim it for this time period of the beginning of the rebellion.
How old is Jyn Erso?
Well, 10 years older than she would be if she was talking to Enfys Nest. That's
I know,
the point.
but how old is Jyn Erso? In Rogue One.
How old in Rogue One? I don't know. I'd say, let's see. She's in Rebel Risings. I think she's like 12 to 14. She was left when she was 15, right? Is that right? Or am I thinking of Cassian?
She was a teenager. So you figure she's in her probably late 20s during Rogue One?
No, I think she's like 25s to whatever. But I'm saying I don't think they would bring back Felicity Jones to play like a 16 to 18-year-old
Jyn, like when she got left behind.
They did it for Kira. Why couldn't they do it for?
Because I think that was only like 3 years ago, wasn't it? That wasn't like.
But she was still playing a teenager.
Before.
She's a 32-year-old 30-year-old actress playing a teenager. Just give her bangs. We've gone over this.
The Bang Theory.
I don't know that she was really playing a teenager. She was playing a version of herself, like let's say, like 3 or 4 years younger.
They were making out like teenagers. Let's be honest. They were teenagers.
Okay, well, maybe they're 25.
I think they were
making out like teenagers.
Yeah,
I think because all the descriptions were like in their youth.
And Han was supposed to be 21 or so, 22 when
they were in
Solo
Corellia
happened.
in their youth.
He's probably like 18 during the Corellia time.
That's my point, though. It's only like
That's
3 years
point
before.
Too. Give her bangs. Felicity Jones, give her bangs, and she looks like a teenager.
All right, quick yes or no here.
I know.
Yeah, well, we're done.
He said
we
no.
all said, we all gave our answers. So that's it for Will of the Force. If you guys disagree or agree, let us know with any of those questions. And good on you, either way. We got a big discussion to talk about.
That was the noise of James' finger pointing at you over the microphone.
Good on you. All right, let's talk about this discussion, though, John. What do we got pulled up for this week?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
Okay, so we like to do some serious discussions sometimes, as much as we like to have fun on this podcast, of course. We like the balance there. So Gary Kurtz recently passed away. It is very likely this podcast doesn't exist because Star Wars doesn't exist if it wasn't for producer Gary Kurtz, who passed away last week at the age of 78. Kurtz was the unsung hero of the original trilogy, perfectly challenging George Lucas's ideas and being the yin to his yang while also fighting the studio Fox to help the original film get made and completed in the first place. Now, I know many out there are talking about his legacy, so we're going to put our own unique spin on this, talk about Kurtz's thoughts on reflection going back to the original trilogy. In recent interviews, he shed truth onto many of the myths and misconceptions about Star Wars, clearing the air, pretty much, and many of which were brought to light by Chris Taylor's book, How Star Wars Conquered the Universe. But overall, Gary Kurtz's contribution to Star Wars and really him putting his imprint into shaping what became the original trilogy can't be understated. So let's talk about it. What is your guys' thoughts on Gary Kurtz, his legacy, and let's talk about it a little bit. Who wants to start?
I mean, I can bring up just in general that we've talked about it many times on the show. I'm not a special features guy. As much as I personally love the idea of film and stuff like that, I just don't pay attention usually to a lot of the background stuff that's going on. And this name to me, while it is familiar, I'm not immediately pulled into a lot of the stuff that he's done. However, doing a little bit of research, after his passing, I'm like, man, this guy is pretty crazy. He was there, on day one. And I guess correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a little bit of possible back and forth with him and George Lucas or something. Maybe they disagree on stuff around Return of the Jedi.
Quite a bit.
So yeah, it's interesting because I almost feel like I'm more interested to look into it now. To see someone who was there from the beginning that just disagreed with the way that Star Wars was going. You'd think everybody would love the way that it was going, the way that it turned out. But this guy has been here for a very long time. And I did read that book, How Star Wars Conquered the Universe, and it was a really great read. And I know that over the years, I've always heard these stories about, a lot of the examples that they bring up. The old samurai movies and Flash Gordon and did George have the whole thing planned from the beginning? And a lot of that stuff never sat well with me, and it's kind of interesting to see that he's coming out and saying, romanticized, that's not the way it happened.
Yeah.
They're trying to turn it into something that it isn't. Because all of his stories absolutely make sense to me. People like to think that any artist has this he had the whole thing planned out. That's really cool, but I don't think people really. That's a very rare thing that would ever actually take place. Most people assume that the project that they're working on is going to be received well, or they hope that it will be received well. They're not thinking about 2 and 3 and 4 and other things down the line. Usually you're putting a lot of focus in the first one, and if the second one gets picked up and you're lucky enough to keep doing this thing, make movies or make records and have fans and all this stuff, then you'll tackle that bridge when you get to it. So listening to his examples of that a lot of this stuff was romanticized, and we can get into the details if we want. But that stuff all struck a chord with me. So it makes me feel like I might even understand Gary's version of history, than, George Lucas's, revisionist history, a personal revisionist history. If it's untrue, I don't know.
And we're not, I mean, I know you're not, and we're not here to say like this discussion is about like discounting what George Lucas said or anything like that. It's just Gary had his take on the history, and it's interesting to get the producer's take on it because we always hear George's.
Yep. So. And that's what I'm saying is that I appreciate his take on it because his take on it makes more sense to me personally. And I'm like, yeah, I think this is how Star Wars went down. So thank you for saying that stuff. I don't know. What do you think, Lacey? Like, let's talk some Gary.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting when you hear about the relationships between George and Gary and George and the Kasdan. I think it's one of those things that's just really cool to see the relationship between two people, especially on a creative product or project, that they can work together and disagree. And I think that's like really current timely, that you can disagree on something and it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible person or that other person is wrong. You just have creative differences. And I think Gary and George is a prime example of like two people with different views that work really well together and challenge the other to be better. Yeah. Which I really appreciate. The other thing I really loved about Gary when reading up on him a little bit was he was the first one to really push Star Wars not as a science fiction film, which I feel like often people throw that term out there, and he pushed it as a space fantasy, not a science fiction. And he even did that before it came out because he knew that critics that love science fiction and even those fanboys would be totally against Star Wars because it isn't a straight cut science fiction film. There's magic and all this other stuff that's involved. So I think it's another thing that just brings it back to now where you have someone that believes so much in the product and so much in what they've created that they're willing to defend it, even to people that they know are not going to like it, just because they're just like, give it a chance. Why don't you, watch it? Let me know what you think. But we're not presenting this as what you're claiming it to be. We're presenting it as its own thing. So
and you have to think about it this way, like when you put it in 2018 context and say like this guy stood up for Star Wars and championed Star Wars, we'd be like, duh, like it's Star Wars.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
But in 1975, when you're pushing this story and you got this guy, George Lucas, who just made American Graffiti, also produced by Gary Kurtz, and they're like, all right, so this is our pitch, like this is what we're doing, like they must have looked like they were crazy. Like, you guys are going to ruin your careers. Like, you're not going to make this. This is insane.
I mean, Alec Guinness and Darth Vader's voice, what's his name? James Earl Jones, like, didn't want to be associated with it.
Alec Guinness is like, you need to give me, like, a cut of the gross of this box office or I'm not doing this movie. You know what I mean?
And I saw something. He did. Yeah. I saw something where they were talking about the state of science fiction, and they were like, the last major science fiction stuff was like in the 50s, and it was like Creature from the Black Lagoon kind of stuff, and like aliens invading from outer space, and that was just kind of the culture at the time. And the other thing was in the late 60s, early 70s, you know, they were 2001 A Space Odyssey came out, and that movie, though it was really well done, it wasn't well received. Like, it didn't make a lot of money. So going into Star Wars, they're like kind of confused because they're like, well, yeah, you know, if we pitch this as science fiction, it's not gonna work. Like, people are just gonna say
they're not gonna
science
give
fiction
the budget
sucks.
for it. Yeah, right. And you know, even the early test screenings of this movie didn't do well. Like Star Wars, there was a quote from somebody who said, a 22-year-old kid who saw it said, "This is the worst movie I've seen since Godzilla versus the blah, blah, blah monster," or something like that.
Sure. And
he's talking about Star Wars, like the first friggin' Star Wars movie. So, like, it's funny, like, today people are like, try to act brave by like being like, I support Star Wars Resistance, that's going to be a good show. It's like, this guy supported Star Wars when nobody believed in Star Wars at all, and he pushed for it, and he put his career on the line. So that's one thing in itself. And then the other part I want to focus on before I get into him knocking down a bunch of the myths about Star Wars is what Lacey brought up about him challenging George Lucas, and I think that is the most important part to what made the original trilogy great, because when I take that, and please don't skewer me, and compare it to the prequels, where you had George Lucas surrounded by Rick McCallum, who was his executive producer for the prequels, who was, without question, I don't care what anybody says, a 100% yes man. Anything George wanted, anything George thought, that guy was 100% in on it. Even in interviews, everything you saw, he was 100% a backer. And I think that's a problem.
I would have been the same yes man. Like if
Honestly,
I was hired for that job, I'd have been like, George, you
and
made
that's
Star
fine,
Wars.
but the content suffered. The content
Right.
suffered.
I know.
So honestly,
I'm just saying.
one of the best things you can do in a creative process or any project really is to surround yourself with people that think differently, because you're only going to end up with a better result.
Yeah.
Another example would be the Segway. Dude that built the Segway only showed it to like people that were invested in it. You're laughing, but I'm totally serious. He only showed it to people that were invested in it, and they were like, the Segway's going to be the next thing, next transportation. It flopped so bad because he didn't get anybody that hated it around, and then he ended up driving himself off a cliff.
Did that really happen? Is that true?
Yes.
That's unbelievable. Wow.
Not like purposely, but like
I was
by accident.
actually laughing because I thought you were going to use it as a segue to your next point. And then I was like, oh no, she's actually talking about segues.
No, I'm
Segway,
talking about
Segway.
the Segway because the guy didn't get any feedback, which is what happened with the prequels. Is you had people that were like, "Oh no, George knows what's best," and I don't care who you are, you always need someone that critiques your ideas, or they're never going to evolve and they're never going to be what they could be. That's just how it is.
He was a hard line to George, and then, but on the other side of the coin, he was also his biggest supporter. And
Did you see the video where they were like editing saved Star Wars?
Yes. I watched a presentation on how
What's
the
the
editing
video?
saved Star Wars.
So I'll send it to you, John.
Yes.
It's how editing, and they show the beginning of like what people thought with like Steven Spielberg. Gary was the one that was like, "This is garbage.
Yeah.
Like this is so bad."
Yep. Yeah,
There's
I remember. I believe Spielberg said it wasn't good when he first saw it.
Yeah, because it was just a mess. There was like random scenes and.
Yeah.
A couple, like, I don't know, like a year or two ago, somebody like uncovered some old footage of, they were at like a convention, and I don't remember who it was. Now that I'm thinking about it, it probably was Gary, but it was like him, and then Mark Hamill was there too, and it was
Mid-American in 1976.
Yeah. And it's like this video of them basically doing like a press junket or some sort of like panel. And you can hear the fan questions and stuff, but this is all before they've seen the movie. And they're just kind of sitting up on stage and they're taking fan questions and stuff. And even in the first few minutes, there are people in there that get like boos because they're like offending them in the sense of like, this is just another space stupid science fiction movie, blah, 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 blah. And people are like, come on, dude, they're right here. You're insulting them to their face and stuff. I don't know. It's just.
Imagine if people did that today.
I know. It's so crazy to me.
Yeah.
Not that people don't have the vision, because I can understand it, because at the time this was something completely different. And I don't know, it's just interesting going back to that point that Gary was there championing it the whole time. And another thing too, I wanted to mention that Gary didn't always shoot down what George was saying. Oftentimes people would make up these things like, oh, George just stole that idea from blank or this other thing.
Flash Gordon,
it's just a ripoff of that. And he was there to set the record straight. He goes, no, I mean, like, we'd seen that stuff, but like it didn't have any real influence over what we were doing. Like, here's the reasons we created that stuff. Like, I have vivid memories of us describing what we wanted the Force to be like and why. And then when somebody comes along and says, well, you guys just ripped it off of this, we're like, no, we didn't. Like, we literally did it from scratch.
He has a quote, and I have that here, where he was asked about that, whether it was, if they pretty much stole the story from The Hidden Fortress by Kurosawa. And he said, pretty much like you just said there, like, what are you, crazy? Like, he said, quote, not really. There are definite comparisons, there's no question. If you want to look hard enough, the two peasants and the idea of transporting a princess across hostile territory, it's fairly straightforward action adventure, but I mean, they're very generic. So
yeah.
So
I mean,
and he
I would
said,
be
if you
bummed.
read, Yeah, so he said if you read all the versions of Star Wars, you know that the story has been very progressive. The characters changed a lot.
Yeah, I would be bummed if I wrote like a story and I put my heart into it, and then they're just like, they make it so simplistic. Like, come on, guy doesn't have a lot to do at the beginning of the story, finds out he's more relevant, later becomes a big strong hero. You don't think you stole that from? And then they just continue to name like any movie or any book that has that same
Every
rough
movie
idea.
ever.
They do
It's
it
like-
with Harry Potter too.
Oh my
They do it with
gosh,
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that, and I hear the Kurosawa thing, and I also hear the Joseph Campbell thing, and he debunked that too. Even though people still fly that flag that George Lucas took this whole Joseph Campbell theory, but he said the whole idea of Star Wars as a mythological thing, I think, came about because of later on interviews with George that tied it to the hero with 1,000 faces, and he revealed that George Lucas didn't even read that until he was almost done with Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, and he said, actually, if you look at it carefully, all coming-of-age stories fit that model. Hollywood's done it for years and years and years, dating back to the 20s, and he thinks it did kind of cloud it a bit that Star Wars got so closely tied to it, and he was even more so when George did long interviews about the Joseph Campbell book and those connections, and he said the connections are obviously there, but he thinks it's way too analytical, and George never even, like he said, he didn't even read that until he was finishing Star Wars. So just another debunk of Gary Kurtz, just not saying George was lying, but almost saying, giving George credit, saying like, you got to give him more creative credit here. He wasn't taking these root for root stories from other people.
This isn't Facebook. We're not taking the idea and quote like making it better,
right,
or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Even though he was going to call it The Star Wars, and then he changed it to Star Wars. Like
which is a Facebook reference.
Yeah.
Like, drop the. It's cleaner.
But another thing I want to bring up is how George Lucas like had almost a borderline heart attack, I think, while he was making Star Wars because of all the stress and the panic attacks and anxiety. And Gary Kurtz was the one who really pushed hard back against Fox, who didn't want to, buckle with the budget and was giving them a hard time. And thankfully to Alan Ladd Jr., the only person at Fox who supported and believed in Star Wars, worked with Gary Kurtz and George to make it happen. So when they needed the extra money for the budget and the extended time for filming, thanks to Alan Ladd and the relationship between him, Gary Kurtz, and George Lucas, was able to make it happen. Otherwise, this movie may get scrapped half filmed.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me to think
gosh.
that there's even a possibility of somebody being like, I know we said 8 million, and I know we're coming up on 10 million. I need another 250,000. Also, I know all of our principal actors have gone home. We still have to build another set. It's
Yes,
the
yeah,
Tantive
right.
4. We still have to build another set. We still have to shoot that stuff and this other stuff. We'll just do it both at the same time. Don't even worry about it. It's going to be great,
Yeah. Or imagine it never happens and they do film like 40% of the movie and it gets scrapped by Fox, and then he just has 40% of his movie just sitting around, and it's Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, all them. And like he winds up finding success with Indiana Jones, and he's like, I had this other movie that I filmed like halfway. Like, can we finish that? Imagine that happened. Just like, I got this other thing. Yeah. It came so close to not happening. And here we are 40 plus years later going to a celebration just for this franchise. Like, it's unbelievable what it turned into. And I think even though it's still such a juggernaut, it always holds that underdog spirit because it almost just didn't happen. And George fought as an independent filmmaker to make it happen against the big studio.
And going back to the beginning, like, that's exactly why I feel like I understand Gary's points of like, it wasn't all planned out. Nobody had faith in this to a certain degree. Like, there's a lot of people that were like, this is never going to work. And certain people were like, no, we think it could work. But I don't think that anybody on that set was like, no, you don't understand. This is the beginning of a new era of filmmaking.
Right.
We can get this one off. The second one's going to be great. The third one's going to be great. Then later we're going to be able to do 3 more. Then later we're going to have a whole series. Disney's going to buy it. It's going to be one of the largest franchise. Nobody had that thought. That's the thing. And so hearing Gary's understanding the very down-to-earth version of his story always really, it does make sense to me. And I like hearing that because even being in the band, I relate to that. Like, I didn't think our first album was going to be anywhere near as big as it was. And then the second was bigger and the third was bigger. And I'm like, this is nuts. You don't think this is going to happen. And then when it does happen, you're like, all right, cool. We can make moves from here. But I don't know. There's no way you can say episode 4. It just is. That's wild.
Lacey, you watch videos on YouTube just as much as I do. In terms of like George Lucas and old interviews and stuff, like there are so many different periods of time where George Lucas gave a different story on, I had 12 stories and I did this, or this was always the middle story and there was never going to be sequels. Oh, I had 12 stories written. Like he kept changing it
ends
all
with
through
Vader.
the years.
Yeah.
And then Gary Kurtz just chimes in and he's like, none of that's true. He's like, there was a lot of little bits and pieces and there were reasonably good ideas that ended up being the final draft. But once the final draft of the first one was locked in and it was all polished and edited, we had some other ideas to throw around, but it was very loose. Like there was no, like James was just saying, like there was no plan. There was no
Gary
nothing.
gave facts to that too. He said when we wrote this story, it was supposed to be this thing and then it ended up getting split. So if that's the case, then that proves that story was never supposed to be this other thing because it just doesn't
Look, if they had this
up.
all planned out, they wouldn't have had Luke and Leia make out.
Right.
That's the biggest
exactly.
thing.
Yeah.
Like from an early age, before I was like, wait a minute, George is trying to say that this whole thing was like a thing. Why would they do this?
Yeah,
or why would they have done that?
Yeah.
It doesn't, it's just
like when they
so
first
weird.
made Star Wars, Obi-Wan was just very literal and not a certain point of view. He's like, no, Darth Vader did murder and betray your father. That's what we thought when we first made this. There was some guy named Anakin and some guy named Darth Vader and he killed him, But I like how it turned out, but it's clear George didn't have a plan. And, credit to Gary Kurtz to
over the
reveal
kissing
this.
thing, man. I can't get over the kissing thing. I just think that's so funny.
If you watch Game of Thrones, it's not that big of a deal.
Well, I'm just saying. So say George had it all planned out and he told Gary about this and he's reading the script and he's like, wait, hold on. You have them kissing and stuff here. And he's like, I know. It'll be great.
Throw them off.
It'll be great. Yeah. It's like, but you've already told me the plan was that they're going to be brother and sister. And he's like, but they don't know that. And the audience doesn't know that. It's going to work. Trust me, it's going to work. It's like, you're weird and creepy and strange. And I don't understand how this is part of your story.
Yeah. And it's not like they kiss and then Luke's like, that was weird. He's puts his arms behind his head like, I'm the man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's one other aspect of this I want to talk about, and that's how he departed after, as they were starting to make, I guess, Return of the Jedi, because they had differing views on how it should end. Gary Kurtz was more in line with Harrison Ford that they should kill Han Solo. George was more inspired by the success and happy ho-hum of Indiana Jones, and he's like, all right, let's do this Ewok thing, and everyone celebrate at the end.
Gary was more in line with Lacey that they should kill off Poe Dameron.
Yeah, and Chewbacca, kill everybody. Yeah. He was also against the idea of a second Death Star. A lot of that there. So he said the original, and this makes me think of the sequel trilogy ending, and I know that's going to piss off Lacey a little bit, but this is his quote. He said, the original story outline that we had for the third film I thought would have been great. It was darker and ended up with Luke riding off into the sunset metaphorically on his own. And that would have been a bittersweet ending, but I think it would have been dramatically stronger.
Like he left Leia and everything?
Yeah, almost like, all the people mad about Luke going to Octo, maybe that's kind of where they were going originally with this thing 30 years ago. So it's possible that the sequel trilogy leans more on that bittersweet tone than the whole happy everyone dancing to a yub nub or celebration type of theme. It made me think about that. That term bittersweet, like it's a satisfying happy ending to an extent, but with some loss and that
right,
that sort
because
of
nobody
thing.
walks away from war unscathed.
Right. Yeah.
Wasn't part of his thing too to like he just didn't like the idea of the Ewoks, and he's like, I get it, sell toys. Wasn't that part of
that? Might have been. I'm not positive on that.
Okay.
I know they were originally wanted to make those Wookiees, but that wasn't feasible either.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. with all the Kashyyyk.
Well, I'm
and all
glad
that.
Han Solo didn't die because
Oh,
then
me
my
too.
favorite character would have never existed.
Well, there you go. But yeah, overall, I mean, when you think about his contribution to the franchise and how his name really doesn't get brought up very often, and the fact that we didn't until his passing get reminded of really his impact on the franchise as a whole, especially the first two movies, many of which people say are the best still to this day. For me, it's three things. It's that he challenged George Lucas creatively, that he pushed hard against the studio, something George Lucas was very uncomfortable with, and that's he held his ground years later, maybe because he was like, you know what, I'm old and I'm just going to tell you the truth. This is not how that happened. This isn't how that happened. This isn't how that happened. And I like that because I don't really like when people tie in George Lucas to all these mythical other stories saying he ripped these people off and stuff like that. So Gary Kurtz, cheers to you, sir. May you rest in peace. And that's my piece on this thing. What about you guys?
Same thing, man. I'm interested to look a little bit more into him and maybe get into that. And here's the thing, having now this conversation about his name and it's being brought up a little bit more. Now I think when his name gets mentioned as, part of the legacy, it's going to pop out to me and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, so he was there too. Whereas before, that name just did kind of unfortunately breeze over my head. I'm like, oh, I'm sure there were lots of people who worked on the project, He's just another person involved. And now I'm going to start to connect with his name and connect with some of the stuff that he'd done. So I'm glad that we had the discussion on this episode.
Yeah, as you guys know, I love behind the scenes stuff. I said I feel like a while ago, that I wanted books of stories of all the behind the scenes stuff. And this is exactly why. I think there are so many stories outside the main fictional story that there are to learn about people and working together and, facing difficulty and challenges. I think oftentimes you can find inspiration from the most unlikely of people when it comes to movies, like someone like a producer who has basically what John said is he was there to stand up to everybody that George couldn't. And that's a tough job and tough shoes to fill, then and now. So I applaud anybody that is able to do that, especially with people that criticize something that you work so hard on. So I admire that. And he was a great guy. I didn't know him, but I appreciate him.
Yeah. And, the other person that I mentioned before, who maybe we could talk about it in the future sometime, is Alan Ladd Jr., who was with Fox at the time, who was the only person at Fox who believed in George Lucas's story for Star Wars and helped make it happen. And Stephen Stanton had told me that they made a documentary called Laddie about Alan Ladd Jr. and his and how he kind of was another part of the trinity of people, or whatever you want to call it, to make Star Wars exist between George Lucas, Gary Kurtz, and Alan Ladd Jr., who was at Fox at the time. So maybe we can talk about him another time. But that's pretty much it. So Gary Kurtz, thank you, sir, the unsung hero of Star Wars. We hope you guys enjoyed that discussion. If you guys have other facts and stuff like that you want to share with us that
Please.
about Gary Kurtz, send it to us in the comments on the YouTube channel, on Twitter, email us. Let's keep that discussion going. The three of us really love learning that stuff. And Lacey just put it perfectly. The behind the scenes stuff that really, add character to making these films.
I'll simplify it.
And
What
all
is
that,
the most interesting thing you've ever heard about Gary Kurtz? Just what's the top thing? Send that to us. Send us that.
Yes. All right, so that pretty much wraps up that discussion, and now we're going to lighten the spirits a little bit because
Are we?
it's time for we'll see. It's time for Lacey to read your tweets this week in Resistance Transmissions. What do we got, Lacey?
All right, guys, time for Resistance Transmissions. So this one's kind of funny because I saw it when it got posted on Twitter, and the first thing I said is, "Oh, come on."
Now, let me ask you, why did you say, "Oh, come on"?
Because you were painting Kylo in a negative light, and it bothered me.
Oh, come on.
Wow.
Anyway.
Do you bend at all? Like, do you think he has done no wrong?
No, I'm being sarcastic. He's done terrible things.
Okay.
But he
I was
going to
say, then you truly are lost.
All right. So this week, John put up Lor San Tekka. I can never say anything right. Died after setting Kylo Ren off by saying, "You cannot deny the truth that is your family."
Good job.
What could Lor San Tekka have said to Kylo Ren instead that may have spared his life? So this is actually the opposite of what we did last week, where it was Luke was kind of just like, "Never." This is Kylo Ren being like, "Oh, makes sense." What is the line he says? "You're so right."
Yeah.
So this is like, "You're so right," but not sarcastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. So the first one is William the Porg Wrangler. Oh my God, he's back. I just picture him wearing like, like an Indiana Jones hat with like some type of lasso.
Yeah. I'm picturing a Porg. I don't know why. A Porg wearing Wrangler jeans.
But then I'm picturing him like trying to wrangle the Porg, but the lasso's too big, so it just falls, and the Porg's just sitting there like.
You actually
Okay,
picture
anyway.
him as the Porg, like he is the Porg Wrangler, not like
No, he has the ...
Porgs.
So it's William the ... Porg Wrangler. At Benz_Billy, and he says, Poe went that way. He has the map. If you can hurry, you can catch him. But isn't Poe right there? Isn't he? Because he shoots at him, right?
Well, yeah,
was-
but I mean, last he saw, he went that way. He doesn't know that he's like waiting. Yeah.
And then the what's the word? The music comes on. It's like dun, 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 and then they're running
yeah.
behind
The
Ron.
Benny Hill theme.
Benny Hill theme. That's
The
it.
Benny Hill team.
Next is Scotty J-Ro at the Scott J-Ro. Scotty! And he says, Def Leppard is one of the greatest bands ever. Don't deny the truth that is photograph animal and love bites. Really? Def Leppard? That's the thing that Kyle was like, yes, let me just pause this.
I have to
guess-
disagree with Scotty on that one.
Yeah, I guess Scotty's a big Def Leppard fan. The only photograph I know is, look at this photograph.
I just picture like Kylo Ren, like
Nickelback?
Yeah.
Kylo Ren takes his can we not sing Nickelback? We already talked about Imagine Dragons on the show. We're gonna lose everybody.
We talked about Nickelback last week with
I know.
Nickelback
I
is the
know.
best band ever, and Luke comes out.
That's a
"Never!"
That's a good Resistance Transmissions. What music is on Kylo's iPod?
Ooh.
Now for Scotty, I bet Scotty just picture Kylo Ren in his chambers taking his helmet off and just being like, "Foolin'." There you go, Scotty.
Kylo Ren has both of his arms.
Kylo Ren definitely listens to The Cure.
I was going to say he listens to Black Parade.
And James obviously just made a joke about the drummer for Def Leppard.
I get it. I got it. I didn't get it.
James, will Kylo Ren have both of his arms by the end of episode 9?
Will he lose one arm and become a drummer, join
Is
a band?
he really a Skywalker if he has all of his limbs by the end of the
Yes,
saga?
he is.
Come on, dude.
All
You
right.
can't be a
Next
Skywalker.
is
You have all
Agent
of your limbs.
37 at _Agent 37. And he says, okay, Kylo, you hold the high ground, ... Here's the map. But I thought he gave the map away.
He did give the map away.
Yeah.
Maybe, but this could have spared his life because he could have been like, here's the map. And then Kylo later would have been like,
Maybe
this
he
isn't the
backed-
map. And he'd be like, woohoo. Like he'd
Yeah,
already
just-
be gone.
To the Benny Hill
Maybe he
theme.
backed it up. He had a backup.
Yeah, what if he had a, what do you call that thing? A flash drive.
A hollow drive.
Yeah. Hollow
So then
32 gigabytes.
the next one is at Charlie B. Hoy at 1976. Good year, Charlie. And he says, yo, young Ben, wait till you hear this. The fools thought I was an old, regurgitated Boba Fett. I shit you not.
Was that really a theory? People thought Lor San Tekka, Max von Sydow was playing Boba Fett?
I haven't
doesn't
heard
make
that,
sense.
but
He's
I
like a
wouldn't have been
priest, right?
surprised around Force Awakens time that people are like, yeah, they could the age lines up or something. I don't know.
I mean, people thought Kylo Ren from the back was Luke, so.
Well, people right now think Richard E. Grant is,
Thrawn.
Whoever. Yeah, Thrawn. So maybe people were like, Max von Sydow? Yeah, oh, dude, he's going to be an old Boba Fett. He got out of the Sarlacc pit. He's going to be Boba Fett.
What if Max von Sydow
Why
is
does he
playing...
sound like he's on rocket power?
I don't know.
What if Max von Sydow is playing Luke Skywalker?
Whoa. Whoa.
It's possible.
Okay. Next is Jonathan Mason at Barry_A. Those are two very different names. And he said, you cannot deny the truth that you look great in black.
Oh.
And that helmet. Ooh, okay, Jonathan.
So I kind of stole Jonathan's earlier. I just thought that was a straightforward one. You look really good in black.
It is the best Resistance transmission we have ever received.
Wow.
Thank you, Jonathan, for making my day. I kind of want John just to have to read that just because I want to hear it one more time.
So Jonathan Mason at Barry_A said, you cannot deny the truth that you look great in black. And that helmet. ...
It's just as
dot.
good the second time. All right. And then the last one is from Lore Santeca at Lore Santeca. And he wrote... Oh my God. And he wrote, yeah, someone let me know, please.
Oh, I love that this guy has had this handle for so long, and he's finally like, yes, I am Lore Santeca.
Oh my God.
He got LORE Santeca though.
Yeah.
So someone else's good old LOR Santeca.
Yeah. Well, this is probably Dave Filoni.
That was the best
Santeca.
played lineup ever, John.
I like that he's talking
you put
from...
that last. I was scrolling. I had them each hidden. Oh, man.
I like that he's talking from the grave. Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's a Force ghost, right? James would love that.
What do you think would have happened if Kylo was about to kill him and he said, not Kylo Ren, but Lord Santeca said, who talks first? You talk first? I talk first?
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know, because Poe's going to die, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But Poe was like, what did he say? And then when he gets pulled over, he says the same thing to him. And it makes Kylo Ren even more mad.
Basically,
he doesn't kill Lord Santeca, but he kills Poe.
Don't bring up family. Don't be part of his family. And Kylo Ren won't kill you.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But Rey brought up his family.
He tried to kill her, so there you go.
Did he?
Several times.
Did he?
Blow that piece of junk
It's
out of the sky,
debatable.
and she's in the piece of junk that was in the sky.
I think it's time for...
he wasn't trying to kill her.
Star
He was
Wars
trying to get her to a point where he could say, you need a teacher.
Yeah.
You need a teacher.
I can
show you the ways of the Force.
Your grammar is bad. You need a teacher.
All right.
Well, that was lovely. Thank you guys so much. If you want to be on the show, keep an eye out for the crazy situation that John puts on Twitter. Follow us at RB at SWNN. So we usually put those up Wednesday or Thursday each week. So keep an eye out. And then you could have me read it live.
Live.
And surprise me.
Hey.
Back to you, John.
All right. Yeah. Keep those coming. We love that segment because it's fun seeing Lacey not be able to get through one of them without laughing, as always. And it's just a good time. It's a good way to end the show. It's a nice cool down after our super serious Star Wars discussions. But make sure you guys are subscribed to us on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on YouTube. We are coming to a close on our promotion of #RateTheResistance. So if you haven't yet, this is your final call to be an iTunes user. Go to our profile on iTunes, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, send us the screenshot, at our Twitter account, RBATSWNN, and you are in to win one of our t-shirts of your choice, like the one I'm wearing now, which is our Gary the Porg shirt.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. I'm wearing the Make Solo 2 Happen again. I haven't watched it since Monday.
He hasn't gotten out of it.
I haven't gotten out of this chair. But yeah, so rate us on iTunes, send us a screenshot on Twitter at RBATSWNN, and you're in to win. So we appreciate that. For the t-shirts I was talking about, you can buy one at tpublic.com/user/resistance broadcast. About 40 different designs. James made most of them. I bought most of them, and I just got another mug too, Resistance Broadcast mug. Pretty cool. So head to StarWarsNewsNet.com, our website for all of the articles on all the stories we talked about today, news-wise, and all of your latest editorials, information, all that good stuff. You guys can find me, John Hoey, on Twitter at Johnny Hoey. Way to get my handle, and writing and editing over at StarWarsNewsNet.com every week. Mr. Myra Trunks, James Bainey, when you're not talking about Apple products, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the place that you already said, at Myra Trunks. But
also known as James.
Yeah, a.k.a. James Bainey. Some people know me as James Bainey, like my parents and family and friends. But I think it's so interesting, that thing about the t-shirts, like the Make Solo 2 Happen thing. I just think it's so crazy because there's always a straw that breaks the camel's back. And to think that there's even the possibility that just one tweet that says hashtag Make Solo 2 Happen is going to get seen by the right person that goes, I see this stuff everywhere. Let's just go ahead and do it. You know, it's just, it blows my mind, like seeing a t-shirt or a mug or a tweet or something that could be the one thing that just causes it to finally fall.
You know
over
what,
that
dude?
edge.
I mean, people have been using the hashtag. They may not know where it came from. I mean, we started it, so we're proud of it. If they Make Solo 2 Happen, you know we're going to say, you know, we started that movement. But it's cool already seeing people have bought our mugs of this, stickers. We may have something cool coming up soon regarding that for you guys.
Make Solo 3 happen.
Make Solo 3 happen, and the shirts. So very cool. Keep it coming, and we appreciate it. But Mr. Bainey, are those your plugs, sir?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Lacey, where you at?
People can find me on Twitter at Lacey Gillerin. I usually talk about Star Wars and retweet fun stuff, and I'm obsessed with Bongo Cat recently. I love it.
What is
So
that?
If you have any, just do hashtag Bongo Cat. You'll see what I'm talking about. So if you guys have any good ones, send them to me. They're lovely.
Okay. Cool.
And I also go by hashtag Save Ben Solo. So if anybody wants to join that campaign, I've been riding that one for quite a while.
Quite a
That's
long
it.
time.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
All right. Very cool. So, yes, enjoy your weekends. Hit us up on Twitter, email, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will see all of you with another new episode Monday morning right here on the Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.